Interesting how suffering in this world can oftentimes be the thing that is creates the most meaning and value.
Yes.
And it's an interesting paradox. I hate going through it,
Yeah.
but when you look back, it's like you really learn tremendously about yourself.
A conversation is one of the ways we get to know and understand each other. When faced with division, it's one of the ways to uplift unity. We brought two strangers together for a conversation based around 6 questions that get to the heart of who they are, what they're passionate about, and what they hope for. This is Uplift Unity.
My name is Stephen Simmons. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, but I grew up outside Philadelphia. And the last first 10 years of my career I was in outside sales. And the last 15 years I've been working in technical and community college education.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I grew up in Graniteville, South Carolina. I currently live in Aiken, South Carolina, and I work for Aiken Department of Public Safety. I've been with the city of Aiken about 20 years.
What's your story?
Oh my. My story is actually quite tame. I grew up in Graniteville, South Carolina, a little small tech school town. Basically the whole family, everybody around, went to Aiken County Public Schools. I am a member of the first graduating class of Midland Valley High School, class of 1981. I am an original Mustang. After high school, I went to college for a couple of years and I realized they weren't paying anything. So I left college after 2 years. I was a music major and I went in the Air Force. So I did 4 years in the Air Force as a personnel specialist. Met this cute guy, got married, moved overseas. We lived in Okinawa for about 4 years. Both my children were born there. They call it Typhoon Alley, so we had babies there. And then we left there and went to England. And it was at that point we divorced and the children and I came back home. And so I've been back in Aiken a lot of years now. So that's pretty much my story. Yes.
How did you enjoy living overseas in Okinawa in England?
Absolutely loved Okinawa in particular. Just a very warm and friendly people. And it seems like from wherever you are, you saw water. I didn't think I would like that so much, but it was beautiful, very tropical, just a really good atmosphere. I loved it very much.
Their culture give you a different perspective of growing up in Graniteville and then seeing a different world, different country.
Totally, but the thing is, we did an exchange program there for a little bit, and we had 2 Okinawan boys to stay with us for a summer. And so at the end of the summer, you go and meet their families. You take your dish, they take their dish. And you find family is just family. And we kept in touch with them for a good little bit, and then things kind of waned. But we made, it was warm. It was a warm, rich experience. And again, you find that people are just people. There was a little bit of the standoff when we first met them, for the picnic. But by the end of the day, the language, it was funny, and we all made jokes of it, but there was such a warmness and just a real connection. People are people, and they just, want to be appreciated. So tell me your story.
So I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and my home is Louisiana. My family's home is Louisiana, and my father was in the chemical business, and so we moved to Houston, Texas when I was about 4. And then we made the ultimate culture shock for me. We moved at the age of 10 from Houston to Philadelphia. And that was a completely different world. So I spent my junior high school and high school years up in Philadelphia, but I always wanted to come back down south. And eventually found my way halfway between New Orleans and Philadelphia at the University of South Carolina. Met my wife. And once I met her, that was it. I was never going back to Philadelphia again. But we dated for several years, and then we got married. And a week after our wedding, I got the offer to come to Augusta, Georgia, to open up an office in the area. I was a history major. My initial goal was to become a high school history teacher, but as I got towards the end of my college years, I'm like, that's not really what I want to do. And so I waited tables for a year, and found I enjoyed talking to people, and someone suggested sales. And so I got to work for a company called Check Care Systems, and that's what led me down to Augusta, Georgia. And I worked for another company called Entertainment Publications, And then in 2005, Aiken Technical College was looking to hire a director of sales. And I went to go work for them, and I've been with Aiken Technical College for the last 15 years. But along the way, my wife and I had our first child, Joey, 20 years ago, which is hard for me to believe. Then we had our second son, Nathan, and I thought we're good to go. She desperately wanted a third. We ended up getting twins. So in 2005, I was 32 years old, a straight commission sales rep with a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and newborn twins, and that was the most stressed I've ever been in my life. But as life I've experienced, everything begins to work itself out. So we've lived here for 20 years. We've raised our children here. The 2 oldest are now in college, and the 2 youngest is still in high school. But that's we love Aiken. We find it to be a wonderful community, and I don't think you could tear us away from it now. So
I'm kind of curious, how's the feel, because like between Philadelphia and now in this, what's the texture of that like?
Right. Philadelphia is an interesting place because it's very, I argue it's very segregated via economics and unfortunately race as well. And so living on the outskirts in the suburbs, you definitely have a different feel than living down in Philadelphia. And I didn't really appreciate Philadelphia itself as much as I should have. I just couldn't wait to get out of there. I think most people want to leave the town they grew up in, no matter what it is. But it was, I find that down south, people are more intermixed, whether it's social class and race, they're a little bit more intermixed than they are up there. And I have to pause because that's a 30-year-old reflection or mental concept of what I have of Philadelphia. But yeah, it's definitely, it's a different world. So.
Is there a moment in your past that had a significant impact in shaping who you are today?
Yeah, I would say there's probably a lot of moments. Growing up in high school, I really didn't care much for school. I wasn't a great student. In fact, I think I graduated bottom 10th kid of my class, not 10%, 10th kid. I didn't really care for school. But it wasn't until I graduated from college that I began to find a connection between training and education and the work that you do. And that's when life really began for me. But thinking about my life with my wife and the kids, there's been several moments that I think have been trying that have absolutely 100% influenced me and requires people to develop persistence and resilience. Certainly getting married is one thing and having a couple of kids, but having twins and being responsible for these 4 children with a stay-at-home wife, that forced me to grow up. My second oldest son, Nathan, when he was 9 years old, we noticed he was having trouble walking out of nowhere. And after several months of misdiagnosis, we discovered he's got a neurological disorder called dystonia. And so literally his body was going to be, a mind trapped in its body. And by that summer he was in a wheelchair. And at the end of that year, 2011, the doctors said they could do deep brain stimulation surgery on him, where they put wires in his brain. He's got a wire that is attached to a battery that's under his chest. And 2 days after they turned his device on, he goes walking by me like there's nothing wrong. And so when you look at him, you don't see there's anything wrong. In fact, he just graduated this year, and watching him walk across the stage was another miracle. So going through even just the daily grind, I think all of those begin to shape you. And I think of the person I am today and who I was 30 years ago. Life can be a steady grind, but developing that persistence and resilience, I couldn't say there's one moment, but there's been a lot of moments that have been trying. So how about you?
I'm a daddy's girl still, and so always just this very special relationship with Dad. And so we had lived away because I was married, and even though I got out of the Air Force, my ex-husband was still in. And so when we separated and the children and I came home in '93, I think it was. So Dad was up and well, and all was well. But then in a couple of years, he had melanoma, and once he was diagnosed in the surgeries, he actually deteriorated really fairly rapidly. But it was that last 5 to 6 months when I would drive him back and forth to Charleston to his doctor's appointments. And then sometimes I would get to listen, and I would say ear hustle, as he and his brother would be talking, you know, when he was sitting in the house. And I'll tell you, I learned so much about Daddy, and you know, and a lot of things made sense. But that 5 to 6 month period, even though I was rotten all my life, that was the most impactful for me. And it helped me understand him a lot better. So then it helped me process things a lot better, you know, about some of the decisions. I mean, just a lot of things. But the most, that 5 or 6 months, those last 5 or 6 months, has really shaped me to be who I am now, good or bad, however that is.
Was that recent experience, or?
No, Daddy died actually in '96.
Okay.
He died in '96, and sometimes it's like it was yesterday. But I'm the life lessons and just some of those last conversations, the most impactful.
It's interesting how you know, suffering in this world can oftentimes be the thing that is creates the most meaning and value.
Yes.
You know, and it's an interesting paradox. I hate going through it, but when you look back, it's like, you really learn tremendously about yourself.
Exactly. So I've been doing something that I call STAR, Supporters of Trauma Awareness, actually, and I have a quote on our website by Peter Levine. I think it says that the paradox about trauma is that it has the power to destroy, but it also has the power to transform and to heal.
Absolutely, and that's, you know, that's it's hard to tell someone that when they're going through, oh, this is going to be good for you. You know, that's the last thing you want to say, but you find as they go through it, something look back and say, wow, that was the most impactful thing, even though it was horrific. And that's interesting about life.
I don't think I could have stood it if I were any place else. But watching even the deterioration, if I was any place else, most impactful, but it has shaped me. Yes.
Is there something you've dreamed of doing for a long time? If so, why haven't you done it yet?
There is something that I don't know that it's been a long time, but here in the last, say, 5 years or so, I've wanted to kind of do a little farm and get some goats. That's what I've been wanting to do, and I haven't done it because of time. And again, the older I get, the more I'm like my daddy, because that was his kind of thing. And so as I get older, I'm standing outside sometimes and I'm going, this is strange, because I'm not really an outdoors person. So like the older I get, the more I get like him. And so things are kind of settling down. You know, retirement probably isn't very far off. And I want to get, you know, a few little goats and put some things in the ground. So time has been why I haven't.
I like the idea of farming. I don't think I
idea.
I like the idea of it. I just don't think it'll happen for me. So
we're gonna see porter goats. We'll see how they fare through this. But that's one thing I do. I want to do that.
Very good.
What about you?
I sort of feel like I'm close to doing it. Teaching full time. Teaching is actually, you know, my original goal was to be a high school history teacher, and then I went down the pathway of sales and business. But it's interesting that I am in education. I'm very fortunate that I get to teach at corporate contract training with Aiken Technical College, but I also teach for Webster and USC Aiken part-time. And I know that after my years of being an administrator, and when the kids are grown and retire, I envision being a full-time instructor, because we're being with the students and having discussions like this. That's what really I enjoy. I do enjoy the admin work, but the being with the students and teaching, I can see it. So I guess I feel like I'm blessed that I'm able to do some, be able to live that dream now while also being able to take care of 4 kids. But I know that that's where I'll end up being. So.
If you asked for a miracle, what would it be and why?
Yeah, that's so, you know, watching, as I shared my story about my son Nathan, watching all 4 of my kids be born was an absolute miracle, and that was wild. I give my wife kudos for all of that. But then watching the miracle of my son go from being a healthy kid to a young man who couldn't walk to being able to walk again. And so I do believe in miracles. If I think, you know, more globally as far as miracles go, or just, it really, I feel very fortunate that I'm able to take care of my family and have health insurance and a stable salary and able to really, you know, live a stable life. And so I guess I desire that for other people as well. Part of my work at Aiken Technical College, I believe, is a sort of a ministry in the sense if I can help people find careers and find jobs where they can take care of their family and begin to achieve their dreams, that's a part of that. So being, you know, other people being as blessed as I've been blessed to have the resources and the ability to do the things I've done, that's what I want for other people. And I guess that's the best miracle I think I can come up with. How about you?
You know, I've kind of, you were talking, and I'm like, wow, that's really good. I'm thinking, you know, a miracle, you know, sometimes when I look back at just how some things have played out, and I have two children, they're both adults now, perhaps one miracle I would, you know, sort of ask that all of the mistakes, you know, and the things that maybe the missteps that the whatever impact for them just kind of be erased or eradicated. You know, because you know you live life forward, but you only understand it backwards.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You know, so maybe something like that, because I think we all start off, especially in parenting, you know, oh, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, it's gonna be different and that kind of thing. And I think sometimes we do make progress, but sometimes we kind of make this, you know, some little pitfalls or what have you. But that's one of my things, because they're always my focus, you know, about moving forward. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I find it's hilarious how much I've become my parents, especially my mother, and no man likes to admit that, but yeah, I've totally become her. I did myself. I had to take off the pressure of trying to do everything wonderful, this happy, positive, awesome childhood. It doesn't quite work that way. In the heat of battle, you lose you absolutely lose it.
But you know, I kind of think that when you kind of walk and you just live daily in a certain space, miracle, you kind of just walk in a place of like blessings.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, that energy, it just kind of happens.
And even if you don't think that is happening at the time, especially when you're, I call it in the zone. Like we've been in the zone for the last 20 years. And only recently have I kind of been able to sit back and look back, because my children don't need me as much as they once did, but to be able to look back and just see what we've accomplished these last 20 years. There really are, there are miracles that are coming through that. So when you think about all the important issues facing our country, is there one of particular importance to you? If so, why, and what would you like to see done about it?
Well, I think right now, one of the important issues, I think we're lacking maybe empathy. We're not nobody's trying to see the other person's side and kind of walking in. So of all of our issues right now, it's really, a lot of it is things that your grandma taught you sitting on the porch, you know, it's not rocket science. Some of it's kind of basic. So of those important issues, I think it's the lack of empathy, and how do we sort of get control of that and just get some balance here and show some just common courtesy.
It's funny because that's exactly what I was going to share on the civility. Facebook, I had some students in my ethics course ask me, how is life different now than 10 years ago? And I said, I think it's Facebook. You know, before you used to hang out with people that, you know, sounded like you, talked like you, pretty much everyone agree. But now in Facebook, you're able to connect with people who don't, who have different views and thoughts. And the one thing I find sad is the lack of civility and the lack of discussion, even when you have differencing of opinions. People are too quick to call someone a name. They're too quick to try and shut down conversation. If you don't agree with me, I'm gonna eat you alive, and it's it shuts down intellectual thought. And so actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was because that's something that I strongly believe in.
And then we say the same thing.
Exactly right. We say the same thing. So. But I do see that the lack of civility, the lack of dialogue, and it really has been insane these last several years. So that's something I'd like to see, you know, change in the world. The ability to have difference of opinions and have meaningful conversation. So I don't see a lot of people wanting to do that. So.
What's the most surprising thing that someone has ever done for you?
I guess we'd have to see my wife for marrying me. That's that's always good. So she, just I guess what, you know, surprising. Trying to think about that. I'm not sure I've got one thing that I can think of the most surprising thing. I guess what I'm surprised at is that my wife and I have been together for 27 years and we're still at it, and we've you know. and it certainly hasn't been easy. But I guess I'm also surprised that my children, for as screwed up as I am, have turned out fairly well. I think they've done that because of their mother and in spite of me. But yeah, I feel very fortunate and blessed to have the life that I have, and want to share that with other people. So, how about you?
That's a little bit tough. I'm one of those work, do kind of people. But I was thinking it's probably a couple of things. My children, I was talking about I wanted a new Keurig. And my son comes to the house and he walks in and there's the Keurig. And so a few weeks ago, I started talking about the French press. I've not even used the other side of the Keurig because they bought me the double one. Because that's what I said I wanted, and they showed up with it. And I haven't even used the other side. And so then I've been talking about the French press, and he walks in a few weeks ago and they have that. So I think it's wonderful when they start hearing me say things and they just go, oh, go get it for, one of them. And then those little surprises, just out of the blue, nothing special. And they just go, that is awesome. The best. Yes.
I'm a terrible gift giver. That's awesome that they're doing that. So.
Well, my daughter listens.
Yep.
And then she texts my son and said, go get your mama this. Yeah, teamwork.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Something you said early on, and it just kind of struck me again about life in particular, when you said really it was kind of after college, when really you begin to kind of connect the dots. And it's interesting how we go to college, but it's almost backwards sometimes. And you kind of don't really get the niche of where you really should be until after that experience. But even just you saying that, it was like, yeah, that's how
I work in
works.
college, but college could be a la la land, and then suddenly you're out on your own. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And to me, that's where real life began. So, what struck me was that both our common experience that through suffering and hard times, because everyone's going to have them. I think that that people try and live a problem-free life, and it just isn't the case. And the more we try to wrest satisfaction out of this world, or the more we try to control things, the more insane it gets. And that's kind of neat that you work with a trauma group, or
that's just something that I started doing, really started pulling it together, because in my work, working with recurring violent offenders, we began to look at, just the trauma around them. And that's just something that Cynthia, I was at home one night and just doodling around, and I put STARR.
That's cool.
And I went, whoa, supporters of trauma. And it kind of came almost just, flowed out like that. So now I just kind of, whatever we do, there is a piece about trauma attached to it, because whether we realize it or not, we're all dealing with something that, and sometimes it warps us, not so good, but then sometimes, it does, it helps shape us. And it's kind of how you process it.
Yeah.
So that's just something I
think that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's a commonality among everyone across every social class and race and everywhere, is that, dealing with life on life's terms and dealing with suffering and difficult things. Another problem I have with Facebook is that, everyone looks like their life is perfect.
Exactly.
And it's absolutely not true. And a real quick story, there's a picture, we have our family Christmas tree a couple of years ago, and a friend of ours, sister, said, she was kind of feeling down. She goes, I saw their tree and I want to be happy for them, but I'm in pain. And her friend says, you see how the tree is leaning? She said 2 seconds after that picture was taken, that tree fell to the ground and Hades broke loose in the house. And so I look at Facebook as people can think that they have a problem-free life, and that's just not reality, and everyone is dealing with something.
And then we look at it, or someone looks at it, and you're trying to live up to something that's not even true. We're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and the Joneses can't even keep up with themselves.
Exactly. So that's so that's one thing I enjoyed about this conversation, was getting that resonance.
Well, it certainly breaks down barriers. It takes down barriers, and I think it does. It helps us begin to experience that empathy piece. That because we're missing it. We just zoop, and we're zipping through life, and we don't take the time to go.
Right.
Wow, I didn't realize you had that talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you said empathy, and I linked it to the concern I have with civility, watching the nastiness of our culture and the keyboard warriors behind social media, and just the constant noise. Civility is something I want to see come back. The ability to have conversations. I think we probably agree on quite a bit, but for even if on hot topics, for people to be able to discuss them, and even if they agree to disagree, the reality of being able to have those conversations without attacking the person. So, and I think that can come.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation and it inspires you to have your own. Don't forget to subscribe for more of Upliff Unity. Visit our shop at upliff.com to get your Upliff merch. And if you'd like to be on Upliff Unity, sign up at upliff.com. Thanks for watching.